Hello. Welcome to episode 9 of the BOBCAST, Bob World Builder Patreon podcast.
Welcome.
I'm Bob.
And I'm Grace World Destroyer.
That's right. And today we're talking about one-shots.
Yep. And that is a game, a campaign that you do in one shot.
A whole campaign?
Well, no. But like an adventure, I guess.
Right. Typically, I would define it off the top of my head as a single session that is a full story. So either, full adventure, a quest, whatever, but you have your solid beginning, middle, end that everyone is satisfied with.
Hopefully.
In one session. Yeah, a successful one shot, I guess. And this is kind of inspired by the upcoming Candlekeep Mysteries book from Wizards of the Coast, which is a collection of one-shots. But anyway, we're just going to talk about what we think, makes a successful one-shot, besides what we just defined, and maybe what makes an unsuccessful one, too.
So, Bob, what's your favorite kind of one-shot?
Okay, to go on my experience a little bit, my favorite one-shots that I've played was technically 2 sessions, but we didn't plan it with a second one in mind or anything. It's not like we went over time. It was actually a one-shot that I ran for 3 of my friends, 2 of my friends, 3 of my friends. Yeah. And it was all basically supposed to be just like Wild West themed.
Oh yeah, that one.
Yeah, I've told Grace about this before. I think I've mentioned it in a bunch of videos at this point, but never talked at length about them. One of my friends really was just wanting to do some kind of like gunslingery stuff, and without much of a plan, I pretty much just like found a cool map, which we ended up not really using, and then tropes. Like I just Googled like Western trope and went off some of those as potential plot hooks, but really it was all the most by the seat of my pants DMing I've ever done, and it was super fun. So to me, that was a good one shot. And then we ended up doing a second session of it, I think like several weeks later. It was just kind of like we were just hanging out. We're like, hey, do we want to just do that? And we did.
Yeah. My favorite one shot is, of course, my own original one shot, Lair of the Frog King.
You're not supposed to plug this until we publish it.
I didn't say I'm not plugging it. One day I might publish it. But it went through like 3 iterations, the first one being in 3rd edition.
That's true.
Before I got it to a point that I was really happy with. And I made it so that it is like scalable for higher level play, because I'm just not a fan of level 1 one-shots.
Right. So we played this multiple times, this Lair of the Frog King one-shot. It is really good, which is why I bug Grace about, writing it up in a way that maybe I could do the layout, we'll publish it or something. Point is, we've played it multiple times, and I've liked it each time, and it keeps getting better, too.
Yeah.
But we've also only played it within the first tier each time.
It's still first tier, but I think, like, originally it was first level, and then I kind of raised it to, like, 3rd level, and I think I also have a 5th level version, but I don't remember if we've ever played it.
Yeah.
But basically I made it so like there's different kinds of monsters that can be in different areas depending on like the levels of the players. But the puzzle is always the same.
Yeah. So monsters, puzzles, I feel like the puzzles end up leading to some interesting social things with like us having to talk and like figure that out. NPCs
well, one of them is like diplomatic puzzle to do, where you get your ass walloped. Well, most likely. But anyway, my favorite genre of one-shot is
Legend of Zelda Dungeon?
Legend of Zelda Dungeon. Simple dungeon crawl with puzzles.
Yeah, and this is a good thing to get into here, because I feel like, what I said with Wild West, what you're saying with like a specific like, set-piece dungeon, every good one-shot, kind of touching on what we said for horror as well, it like has a specific location or a very specific feel throughout it. A lot of people specifically even do this for like holidays. I guess that's why I just brought it up with horror, is because people typically do like, ooh, let's play a spooky session for Halloween. Or like, oh my gosh, it's Christmas, let's do this, blah, blah, blah.
You want to know why I don't like that?
I think I know.
Because it's almost always a festival.
Yeah, what's so wrong with the festival?
I do not like it. I think it's mostly because I don't like D&D minigames.
Okay.
Where, like, you or your party are, like, going around to these different stands where you play a game, and it's just, like, rolling your dice. Because I never even like to gamble in D&D.
Yeah.
So unless I know I can win, like Fortune Faceseeker had dice that she would always cheat with, so she would always win. But
no game within a game.
For you. The time that my sea elf character bet the owner of a dunk tank that she could sit at the bottom of the tank for 5 minutes, and she did, and I won money that way. But even then, like, I wasn't playing. Bets you can't lose. Yeah, like I definitely prefer action or mysteries.
Right.
Which, like, there can be a mystery in a festival one-shot.
Totally.
But then still, usually when I play it, like, my fellow party members really want to play the mini-games. And I'm like, let's do the story.
Yeah. And so I think part of what makes a good one-shot, you know, something to touch on here, is that they really do have to be well-paced. Because if the goal is to finish this thing in one session, like, yeah, there can be a portion of the game where you're like, oh, let's do these goofy little mini games, whatever. But I really feel like I don't recommend that. And it sounds like you don't either.
It needs to be more dynamic than that. Yeah. If you want it to be, like, if you have a certain kind of party that really loves mini games, games of chance in their game, sure. But I think for the most part, people are in it for an adventure, especially if they're, like, new players who've never played before.
Yeah.
New players don't want to
have to learn 2 games at once.
Right. Basically. They don't want to play, like, shuffle games. Guess which coconut shell the button is under. They don't want to do that. They want to find a bad guy and punch it.
Yeah. I can say that, like, I've totally done, oh, you're all in a tavern. Here you see people doing all these different things.
Yeah, but see, gambling in a tavern in a first session is good because it makes your players interact socially with one another.
Yeah, I guess that's why they could be okay for a one-shot if it's, like, new players and, like, you want to start with something like low stakes. Okay, I get that. But that's, like, the whole point of the one-shot in the first place. You're not sticking with these characters. It's okay if it gets crazy or if people make really suboptimal decisions because it's just for fun. Like, it's just one time. Open and shut case. But not yet. We still got a lot more to talk about. So, yeah, on that note, is that one-shots are good for introducing new players to D&D or to any system. You know, they're really good to try out a new system as well. It's something that I've kind of planned to do with Call of Cthulhu extensively. And at this point, I guess the closest I've gotten is a little hybrid of these two things where just over the holidays, I walked through, sort of as a game master, Grace and Grace's parents through a Call of Cthulhu one-shot. But it's the one that's written for one person. So I was just kind of like reading it. I don't know. It was definitely, like, in hindsight, I was like, I should have just prepared anything and just gone with it. Even the Wild West thing, because her dad is into that kind of stuff. But we'll save that for the future. And then I'll report back to you, listener. But new players, new systems, holidays, which you already brought up, and just breaks from your regular campaign. Because if you're playing the same story for a long time, it's kind of nice.
And as a person who likes higher level one-shots, I'm a fan of the, oh, you're suddenly all teleported to this completely different situation.
Yeah.
And then it's, like, non-canon, but, like, sort of non-canon, so you can still give the players cool items and they keep them. But if they die, like, they don't die in the real campaign. They just wake up because it's all a dream.
If you die in a dream, you don't die for real?
Right.
Okay. Yeah, so that's a neat way to, like, semi-break from a campaign. And I think that can be really cool. Something I've wanted to do, but I don't think I ever actually did, was, like, have a one-shot where the players are running through some scenario that's happening, like, either at the same time in the world or, like, in the past in the world. Like, they can just be any random characters, but they're kind of living out some aspect of the lore. Or, like, some other side of the campaign that then, like, later they're going to interact with at some point.
Even if they're like playing against themselves as like
Yeah.
the gang that their actual party is trying to chase down. Like that's pretty cool.
Yeah, oh man, now I can never do this with you, but like listener, it just be a really cool idea. Like what if, you have this huge battle like coming up in your campaign or something. And or maybe the players don't even know about that yet. And you're like, "Hey guys, how about next week? We'll just do a little one shot." And you have them like do the side of the enemy. So then when you get to the battle versus them, you just repeat all of their decisions and and you can even end it the same way. Like maybe it went in the real character's favor or maybe it didn't. So I don't know. That could be a cool thing to do.
I've always liked the idea of like running 2 total campaigns.
Yeah.
One is the good guys, the other is the quote bad guys, and then eventually like you don't tell either party this, but then eventually they face each other in some way.
I don't think we have enough friends for that.
Don't have enough friends or time. Like I can barely write 1 campaign. You think I can do 2?
Yeah.
No.
That'd be tough, but it definitely happens. Like we have a friend who's running multiple groups in the same world. I don't know if they like interact at all. Breaks from the campaign to either break from your story or, nice little classic here, just give your DM a break. It gives another person who maybe wants to try DMing a chance.
Make the player run something for once.
Yeah. Yeah, that player who always whining about a one shot, make them do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you want. Something else I wanted to bring up here, maybe regarding trying a new system or whatever, is like, yes, it's kind of low stakes, so you shouldn't stress about it too much. And yes, I had just talked about how I did like next to no prep for some of my most fun sessions of D&D ever, those Wild West things. I do feel that, generally speaking, a one-shot session should have some pretty thorough prep. So what do you think about this?
I semi-disagree, because while I think you do have more opportunity to really flesh out the details of this one thing that's going to happen, you don't have to worry about, like, connecting plot points or, like, secrets that your players learn that are important later. Just anything, like, too complex, basically. So I think maybe prep takes the same amount of time, but it's probably simpler overall.
Yeah, so I say this because I think not a ton of world building or anything where you're planning and like mapping out extensive things for the future of this campaign, but I really feel like it's a chance to get into the details, especially because you're probably playing it in this one location, whether it's a haunted house or one little town, one dungeon. You really have a chance to like really think about what everything looks like and feels like and kind of create all those details. Because hopefully you're going to use this later too, if you are planning your own one-shot, that is. It's a time to really kind of make sure you really have a sense of all the possible routes that the players could actually do, because you are kind of really steering things more so in a one-shot, knowing that you want to get to that solid ending.
Yeah. Also, don't take the ending away from your players just because you feel like it's going on too long. This happened to me once, where the DM was like, "Oh, it's almost..."
This wasn't me, by the way.
No, it wasn't Bob. I was like... And I talked to him about it later. I was like, don't do that. But it was like, we were getting up to the final boss fight, and then suddenly, like, some other NPC came in and was like, "Oh, calm down, name of boss, it's okay." And then he did, and so we didn't get, like, a resolution. There was no climax. It was just like, oh, okay, it's over, I guess, and we didn't actually do anything to help. We just stood there.
And was this also a one-shot where you had too many minigames in the beginning?
Yep.
Is that the problem? Yeah.
I think that was the problem.
Yeah. So hear this cautionary tale, listener. A quick little maybe minigame thing could be good, but ultimately, like, if you have planned out a certain amount of time that you're going to play this, you should probably just skip little mini stuff altogether, because it could come at the cost of really ruining the end of your session for your people who are playing. Like, especially if it ends up going too long, it'd be better to realize, like, okay, wait, this took like way longer than expected. We can play for like another half hour or so, but then I'm going to call it here, and we'll just do another session later. Like, it's okay to stretch it into 2 sessions.
Yeah, it's okay to do a 2-shot.
Yeah, if you think it would be a more satisfying ending that way. Not ideal. The pace is everything for this, and it is very DM driven, because in a regular session of D&D, your players, they control the story. Like, they are the ones really driving what changes the world and what changes the story as you go along. But in a one-shot, they kind of expect to be coming along for the ride, I think.
At least, they kind of should be. Like, if your players know that it's a one-shot and they're still trying to, like, really go off map, like, right. I don't want to be in this village where the plot obviously is. I go somewhere else. Then you probably don't want to be playing with that person anyway.
Yeah. Like, if it's a haunted house and all they want to do is find ways to escape it, they don't, like, I don't know, then they're just canceling the game for themselves. Like,
then tell them, oh yeah, you just phase right out of the wall, you're gone. Okay, everybody else, what do you guys do?
Right. And one way you can kind of get around this is by going into a one-shot with pre-generated characters that you, the DM, create.
Right, so no one is like, oh, my character has other more important things, like finding all the goblins who killed my parents.
Right, yeah, because you can kind of go about it 2 ways. Like, either just say, like, hey guys, do you want to do a one-shot in a couple weeks? And they'll be like, yeah. Do you want to make your own characters or should I make characters? If you make your own, I can try to come up with something based around that. So then they could choose that. Or it's like, okay, I have this idea in mind. I'll just make some characters. And then that way, I think when their characters that the DM makes up, it's even going to be a little more fun. Because it's going to be a little more chaotic. They have even less attachment to these one-shot characters than they might have in the first place because they didn't even spend the time making them. So I feel like that can be the most fun thing. And a great tip while doing a little research for this podcast that I saw on Seth Skorkowski's YouTube channel, you should check it out if you haven't. He said that what he'll do, especially because he often does this for horror, is any pre-made characters that the players don't pick, he'll have them be like killed right at the beginning or something. like in whatever it is, he says he would often do like zombie games or something. So these other ones who are just NPCs would like brutally die. Or you can save them like along with, like they're just kind of tagging along with the party as backups. So then if your one shot is really deadly and one of your PCs like eats it really early, you can just quickly be like, okay, now you're this guy.
Mm-hmm. But for new players, though, that could really go either way. Because I think part of, especially if you're trying to teach them the system, part of learning the system is learning how to make a character. And part of learning how to play is making a character. So, like, when you make your own character, you know all those abilities. Yeah. If the DM makes it for you, you're like, what's second wind? How does that work? And then that's just more time that you have to spend explaining in this short session, basically, this one shot.
Yeah. I mean, and if anything, like, you're totally right, but I definitely do not think you should make characters during the time you've allowed to play.
Right, yeah.
Yeah,
obviously.
like it has to be done beforehand. Yeah. But that's a great point, that if you're trying to really get someone into the game, I don't know, ultimately, I think I disagree. Like, I think even if it were brand new players, even though in the past I have totally made a character with somebody where, like, it takes, like, 2 hours because we're, like, walking through every little thing, I think in the future what I would do is just be like, okay, you're going to roll this big die for anything you want to do. Just ask me what you want to do first, and then I'll tell you what to add or whatever.
Or even, like, you pick the character that you want to make for that person, and then you just have that person watch you do it, so that they don't have to go through, oh, what race do I want to be? What class? What skills do I want? It's like, you're still picking that stuff, but you just have your student there learning.
Yeah, I think there's like a whole spectrum basically that you could do this from, like what I just described, what I used to do, to kind of how I want to do it now. Whereas pretty much it's just like, okay, you'll play this character, or you know, you can ask them like, yeah, what do you want to be good at? And if they say, I want to do magic, or if they're like, I want to be good with a sword, or like, I want to do both.
Or just give them really simplified things like what Bob does with kids.
Yeah, that's true too. Because that was my most recent one shot, actually. Ran a one shot for a few 6th graders. I think they're 6th, might be 5th grade. And yeah, we played with, it was like half sheets of paper, no skills. It was just ability scores. very simple abilities, but it was all like very tropey. Like there was a tough guy, there was a sneaky guy, there was a magic guy, and there was like a wilderness explorer guy.
Tintin Schmorkin?
Yes. That was one character that was pre-made, was this gnome ranger. The other ones were Magic Mouse, Tough Turtle, and Crime Cat. And I'm probably going to like put those on Drive-Thru RPG or something soon. Or at least on Patreon.
Crime Cat is trademarked, though, because that's my thief's name in Skyrim, so...
But did you come up with that?
I did.
What? I thought that was like a Tumblr thing.
Nope.
Wow. Awesome. And so, yeah, regarding prep, like I was saying before, how do you feel about one-shots being like a railroad versus pretty much let everybody do what they want?
Unless you want to come up with multiple plots that your players can follow in one small area and then they kind of pick their own, railroad it. Like, put them right at the mouth of that dungeon.
Right.
And say, you dare not turn back because whatever reason.
Yeah. I like that because, yeah, as much as I really had fun with those weird one-shots I did, I think it was more the act of the whole game that was just so goofy. At this point, those players and I had just done the same like D&D campaign for like a year. And it was like the only thing we've ever played was that campaign. And you're all
best friends.
Yeah.
So you already had like a really good rapport.
Yeah.
And just like synergy with each other where that kind of stuff worked out.
Right. And I really just let them like make up a lot of stuff. Fully giving them the reins of like, okay, what do you see when you go in the shop or whatever? Maybe I should have one or two of those guys on at some point to talk about it. It was a great time. But if you want to have a story, because that was not like a story. It was like, okay, we're just bumbling through this and then we made it up. If you really want to have an open and closed session in one shot, you really want to plan it. And like Grace said, pretty much start them at the beginning of it without any little minigame stuff. And don't worry about players being like too inexperienced. Just don't bog them down with rules, because the only rule is like ask the DM and they'll tell you the rule. That's how D&D works.
Yep. That's how it works.
Yeah.
So here's a thought.
Oh.
One-shots are a good place to experiment with your homebrew magic items and monsters.
Ah, go on.
Rather than dropping your extremely powerful or monster that you don't know is extremely powerful yet monster right in the middle of a long-term campaign where you're not sure if your players will remember all of their abilities or how to use counter charm or hold an action, you can instead...
Wait, what monster was that? Was that a beholder? Or was that something weird?
I'm kind of talking about both the succubus.
Oh, geez,
and also the cave hags.
Okay.
Anyway.
Sorry.
Instead of dropping them in the middle of a long-term campaign where they could possibly kill your players because you've never used them before, make a little one-shot around it. See what happens when you give your succubus the ability to ethereal jaunt at will instead of as an action.
I mean, just as a total aside, this is really only for you. I feel like those monsters were fine. I just got butthurt because I couldn't catch them. And I was used to being able to catch everything.
Gotta catch them all.
Yeah.
But if I had put them in a one-shot, I wouldn't have felt bad about using them to murder people.
So one-shots can be great for playtesting,
yeah.
I guess, is one thing we're summing up here. But if it is something really deadly, yeah, like that's okay. Because I guess what we were getting at before with like having these backup characters is like you can, and maybe it being a break from your campaign where like you probably have a character you've played for several weeks or months that you don't just want to like haphazardly lose in some one-off thing. They can be really deadly.
Yeah. Kill your players. That is the Grace World Destroyer motto. It's not that I like killing my players. It's just that I like creating powerful, horrible monstrosities that could be used to kill my players and then feel bad about it later.
Oh.
But I wouldn't feel bad about it if it was a one-shot.
Yeah. Killing player characters. Let's just put a little asterisk on that. Don't kill your players, ever.
Kill your players.
Don't.
That's what the motto is.
Okay.
If I meant characters, I would have said characters.
Yeah. But yeah, I agree because like just even recently in Icewind Dale, like it's kind of a joke now how our fighter, who's a blind swordsman, like it's a really cool like thing that we've worked out, but he almost dies in most of our combats. And now here's the thing. You haven't really had any like easy combats, I feel like every time it's pretty much...
Every combat is easy for me because I'm always invisible.
Yeah, I guess there's just such a spectrum between Grace's Gloomstalker Ranger, who like can't be seen ever in Icewind Dale because it's always dark, and Edgar Ribblefin,
who
just can't
anything.
see because he's blind. So yeah, that makes it kind of hard to balance an encounter, I guess. But it's also, like I don't really believe in balancing encounters being that fun or like that worth your time as a DM. I guess I'm getting a little off track here. Maybe that's a second
Balancing
episode.
is not worth it in a one shot.
Yeah.
Now it's back on track.
But I feel like it is in a one shot. I feel like that's okay.
The one
two
shot
things.
here no. Thing. Main thing. The one shot should mostly be about the plot. If they die at the end fighting the boss, that's fine. Like they still solve the plot. They just didn't beat the boss.
Sure.
But they know what the boss was, which is like the real like
I guess.
Now we know. We understand.
Yeah, if it was a mystery.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. And that's a really great point. A one shot is actually more about the story than the characters, I think.
Yep.
Which is kind of weird to say.
Than the characters or like the battles.
Yeah. Oh yeah. You don't want your one shot to be like bogged down with like combat. Like keep it really snappy until that final battle. This is assuming you're playing D&D where it's like a battle is kind of like what the game is about. But yeah. And also, it makes me really look forward to what the heck's in store for Candlekeep Mysteries because being that they're all mysteries, I feel like a lot of them won't be very combat focused.
Yeah. I feel like I'll have a lot of fun with that. I'll make a detective named Bolivia Ensign.
Law and Order reference for all you listeners out there. Yeah, and we'll be doing a couple one-shots, probably like recorded as gameplay and guides and stuff, but we'll have to see when the book comes out. See what looks fun. The wheelchair
none of it looks fun.
That could be. What if the book just sucks? Then we'll do our own one-shots. Well, I think this is an open and shut session now, too.
We did it in one shot.
Yeah, I was really afraid this could end up being 2 episodes. I mean, not afraid. I thought it'd be funny, but...
I fear nothing.
Destroys everything.
Fear nothing, destroy everything. That's the Grace World Destroyer motto.
It sure is. Goodbye. Need a better... Oh, keep building. I was about to say need a better ending.
Stop it.
I already have an ending. Okay.